Sandy says read, and welcome to the channel. I wonder if we can get through this video without me bursting into some kind of rant. You guys, I'm so angry. Don't I sound angry? I am. I'm really angry. I wonder if any business owners out there can tell me why. Tell me why a single woman cannot express to a business when she's trying to cancel the service. I am so angry with Orkin right now. So angry, so angry. This is the second take on this video because I had to stop filming to run outside and tell the Orkin fellow, who has no business being on my property, to stop spraying on my property because I have canceled their service. I've been attempting to cancel their service. I have paid them off to cancel the service. And why exactly is he on my property on a Saturday afternoon spraying when I no longer have Orkin service? And I don't know why he's on my property. He's not scheduled to be on my... Let us talk about books instead, because books are fun and books take us away from the crazy of Orkin and their inability to listen to women. Or maybe they do this with every client. I don't know. Here we are. You guys, today we are going to talk about Two Twisted Crowns, a fantasy novel by Rachel Gillig. This was an awesome book. I enjoyed it greatly, and it fulfills, is that the word I'm looking for? It fits the clock reading challenge for 2024. This is book 2 in the clock reading challenge. It fits the number 2. It's the third one I've read for the reading challenge, because I'm not doing it in order, obviously. Okay, guys, we've already reviewed One Dark Window here on the channel, and I will be putting the link to that review in the drop-down box below, because that's gonna come into play in a second here. Now we're going to review Two Twisted Crowns, which I enjoyed very much. I got to settle myself down. I'm so angry. I've got to settle myself down. Okay. Let me give you the specs. This is book 2 of The Shepherd King, and it's the second book in the duology. This finishes off our story. It is from Orbit, an imprint of Hachette Book Group. And, you know, we just did a review of So Let Them Burn from Camilla Cole, which is also from Hachette Book Group. So we talked a little bit about that publishing company in that review. You know, I'll put that in the drop-down box below as well. So if you want to go check that out, you may. All right, this is 425 pages plus 5 pages of an epilogue at the back, which I thought was a very nice touch at the end. Let me read the back cover for you. My gems. I'm so angry. Okay. In the dark, spellbinding sequel to One Dark Window, Elspeth must confront the weight of her actions as she and Raven embark on a perilous quest to save the kingdom. Gripped by a tyrant king and in the thrall of dark magic, the kingdom is in peril. Elspeth and Raven have gathered most of the 12 Providence cards, but the last and most important remains to be found, the Twin Alders. If they're going to find the card before solstice and set free the kingdom, they will need to journey through the dangerous mist-cloaked forest. The only one who can lead them through is the monster that shares Elspeth's head, the Nightmare, and he's not eager to share any longer. Now, I'm not sure if I felt that synopsis or that cover copy was misleading or not. I mean, the Nightmare, you know, as we learned in book 1, the Nightmare is sharing headspace with Elspeth, right? She touched the Providence card that is called the Nightmare when she was a child, and her magic allowed the Nightmare to come into her mind and share her mind with her. And I don't know that it's not so much that Nightmare is no longer eager to share space with her anymore, but he sort of sees Elspeth as almost a child. He's very protective of her. And yeah, I'm not going to go too far into things I'm saying yet, because I don't want to give away spoilers. Okay, we're going to be very careful. here at the beginning of this video, because I don't want to give away spoilers. If you guys are interested in going back and reading these books without anything being, given away, I want to be careful. We're going to get to a point where I tell you, okay, click away unless you want to be spoiled, but we're not there yet. We're going to talk a little bit about this book to kind of intrigue you, I hope, because I want everyone out there to read these books. They were so good. I enjoyed them so much. When we're in the chapters that are from Elspeth's point of view, they're titled Elspeth, and they are done in first person. They're written in first person, and that's Elspeth's vantage point. We're seeing through her eyes. That's her point of view. When we're in other chapters that are titled like Raven or Elm, we're in that character's point of view, and we're in third person omniscient. But it's real obvious which character we're in, not just because it's titled with that character's name, but also because we've got that character's viewpoint, and we're channeling that character's thoughts. Okay. What else do I want to tell you before I get into anything spoilery? In the first video where we talked about One Dark Window, I shared with you that at the beginning of each chapter, there were these Providence cards that they kind of served as like mini prologues. I didn't talk about them being mini prologues in that video. I kind of came up with that thought later. There was an online group that was talking about prologues, of course. So that seems to be a hot topic, but I viewed these cards kind of that way now. There were these little like mini prologues at the beginning of each chapter that kind of gave a thematic feel to what's coming in the chapter. And I'm going to show you. Here you go. See that? See, this was happening at the beginning of each chapter in the first book. And these mimicked the cards that the characters would carry, the different, like there was a scythe card, there was a nightmare card, there was a maiden card, these different things. Let me give you an example of what this was. It says, for the black horse card for power and speed, the spirit wanted blood from my war horse, my steed. For the golden egg card, abundance and wealth, I bartered 2 years of my life's precious health. The prophet card came next, the card of foresight. She wanted my fear, so I gave her my fright. When I asked her for courage, the white eagle card, I bartered my skin, which left my hands scarred. So I begged for the maiden, for beauty I prayed. She asked for my hair, shorn off with a blade. So those little snippets that came at the forefront of each chapter kind of gave us a feel for the theme or the thoughts or the theme, what would be happening in the next chapter, what we would see in the next chapter. You get it, right? Okay. We didn't have that in book 2. And I missed it. I missed those little nuggets, those images, those little details. So let me see. Did I show you? Hold, please. I tried to mark for you guys. Okay. Oh, okay, this is good enough. Chapter 22, we see this one is in Raven's point of view. So we have Raven's name at the top of the chapter, and see there's 2 crowns there. That's how the chapter headings looked in book 2. We just have the name of the character that the chapter is named after. And I guess you could say that was the theme for the chapter, because the chapter about Raven, it's going to be from Raven's point of view, and there's going to be something that Raven is solving or working toward or dealing with in this chapter. So thematically, it is Raven's chapter. So that works. But I did kind of miss having those little rhymes and those little nuggets at the beginnings of the chapters. Although the second book did not leave out those rhymes. It didn't leave out those bits of flavor about the Providence cards. Those rhymes and things were still in this book. They were just sort of sprinkled throughout the text. We still had them. Yeah. Okay. Let's see what else is on here. Okay. Those questions. We're going to wait. I have a couple of questions for you, but I'm going to wait and ask those after we get through some cautions, because I don't want those questions to spoil something. Okay. Okay. Cautions. You can go back and watch the video for One Dark Window. If you haven't seen that video, the review video that I did, you can go watch that. And it doesn't give away like what happens at the end. It doesn't give away, you know, the big climax stuff that goes on. It doesn't give that away. Okay. It's safe to watch One Dark Window review that I did. It is safe to watch that and then be able to read the book without, you know, without being spoiled. And and for just a moment more, where you can still watch this video without being spoiled, I want to read for you just a little passage out of this book to give you a feel for Rachel Gillig's writing style, give you just a little flavor, as we do in these reviews, to intrigue you, to make you fall in love with the book the way I did. This is on pages 14 and 15. And this is a passage I picked out that it doesn't give anything away. All right. This is just something to let you feel a couple of these characters. Okay. Okay. Here we go. This is where Renelm Rowan, who is one of the princes, is at Hawthorne House. If you remember those characters from the first book, Renelm, he's one of the princes. And Hawthorne is, Ione Hawthorne is the cousin to Elspeth. Elspeth lived with her cousin and uncle and aunt for most of her life. Okay, so we're Hawthorne House. Right. They took to the library first, emptying shelves, shaking old tomes until the house smelled of leather and dust. I found a prophet, Gorse hollered through a row of mahogany shelves. Elm drew his finger across the uneven mantel. The stones were cracked, but the mortar held firm, no hidden space to hide a card. He stepped out of the library and started up the stairs. Oval niches held worn-down candles, every stone in the wall housing a shadow. The first room off the stairwell was upturned, clothes and blankets and an odd sock strewn about. 2 narrow beds, 2 wooden swords, the room of Elspeth's young cousins, Elm guessed. The next room was markedly more feminine. Elm lingered at the threshold, drawing cold air into his nose, the sense of wool and lavender. A quilt lay on the bed, the linens unwrinkled, neatly tucked. A small table with chipped green paint held a candle, and next to it an oval looking glass. Just below the looking glass sat a fine-toothed comb. Trapped in the wooden teeth were several strands of long black hair. There is nothing left of her here, a voice called from behind Elm's shoulder. Whatever Elspeth took from this place, she carries with her. Elm jumped, his hand dropping to his belt. A ring of steel cut through the hallway, and he pivoted, slicing his knife toward the voice. He stopped the blade just before it grazed Ione Hawthorne's throat. She stood before him, clad in white like a bride. Long and flowing, her dress fell to the floor. Her yellow hair caught the hallway draft, and when she stared at Elm, her pink lips pursed, forming a question she did not speak. Her gaze dropped to his knife. Prince Renelm. His mind was racing, a rhythmic discord against the heaving of his chest. What the hell are you doing here? It's my home. Why shouldn't I be here? Elm's jaw seized. He jerked the knife away, slipping it back into place on his belt. Trees, Hawthorne. I might have killed you. Her voice held a fine point, like the tip of a needle. I doubt that. I'm going to talk a minute about the end of that too. Okay, now to proceed with this review, I'm going to end up spoiling something. I'm going to end up spoiling what happened at the end of the first book. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you don't want to know what happened at the end of the first book, if you want to go read it for yourself first, then I invite you to click away for now. Come back to another video another time. Come back to this one after you've read the first book. Because to proceed with this, we've got to know what happened at the end of book 1. So, bye. Thank you for tuning in. Give this a thumbs up before you go. But, all right, we're going to proceed now. All right, so if you're sticking with me, here we go. All right, my synopsis, without giving away the finale of this one, my synopsis is that the nightmare who's in Elspeth's mind has basically taken control of Elspeth, okay? She did not die at the end of book 1. Boy, we thought she was going to. She did not die at the end of book 1. And the nightmare is basically using her. He used her to nearly kill Prince Half. Oh, how we wish she would have killed him. Oh, how we wish. Because he's a cretin. He's this brutish, awful, terrible, disgusting individual. We wish she would have killed him. But then we wouldn't have all these other plot points that happen throughout this book, right? So she basically, with the nightmare in control of Elspeth, she like shreds House. I mean, she almost kills him. He is on death's door. I don't know how they're keeping him alive, but they are. They're keeping him alive at Stone Castle. Barely. I mean, he's barely breathing. He can't open his eyes. He's so close to death, which is kind of comforting to know that he's in so much pain because he's a jerk. Okay, so thus the shell of Elspeth with Nightmare's yellow eyes, just looking through her eyes all the time. The shell of Elspeth is in the dungeon at Stone Castle. Of course they capture her. Of course they put her in the dungeon. They think she did this. The bad guys, the king, his destriers, they think she did this to the prince, to the heir to the throne. So she's in the dungeon. The king does recognize, though, that Elspeth is channeling this nightmare, channeling this other beast who apparently knows where the Twin Alders card is. The Twin Alders card is what everyone is after. It's the only one of its kind. It is the Twin Alders card. And by finding that card, they can unite the deck of cards. And that's the goal that the king has. Then he will drain an infected person. And remember, he has picked Emery, Raven's cousin, Raven's brother, the prince's cousin. Basically, he's going to drain Emery to use the magic to unite this deck at solstice and lift the veil of mist around their kingdom and remove the magic from their kingdom. And yeah, that's the king's plan. Well, Raven and his family would also like to do this, but maybe not with their brother Emery, but with someone else who's infected, right? So the goal is to get that Twin Elders card. That's still the goal, is to get that card and to drain someone who has magic, unite the deck of cards, do this, lift this veil of mist. That is still a goal. Another goal that we have, though, in this book, the synopsis is telling us that we also want to get Elspeth and the nightmare unentwined. We want to get her away from that nightmare. We want to get her back to her own personhood. And that's a very nice goal. We're also seeing in Two Twisted Crowns, we're seeing another use or another power in that maiden card. The maiden card that Ione has been using, it not only brings her beauty, it not only like heals little wounds that might mar her face or her complexion or her beauty, it is able to heal her of things that might kill her. We're going to talk about that in a second. The king would like to execute her. He sees her as someone who knew about Elspeth's infection, therefore someone who could have prevented what happened to House. He's basically, if you know about the infected people, then you're committing treason by not turning them in. And that's one of the things I want to talk about in my questions. The questions that I have, that was the synopsis, by the way, because I don't want to give away too much in the synopses. I don't want to talk about the things that happen in the back, the latter part of this book, because I don't want to give it away. I don't want to give everything away, right? But I have a couple of questions for you guys. These are our book club questions, you might say. My first question is, was the Kingdom of Blunder actually ever in danger? The kingdom itself, was it really in danger? Now we do have, and where did I write it down? I marked for you guys, there was a page where someone, the nightmare in his original form as the Shepherd King, he talked with his friend. Oh, there it is, page 258. He talked with his original friend, and they were talking about the fact that they thought the kingdom was in danger. Page 258. Brutus Rowan tells the Shepherd King, "Blunder is in grave danger. He said to me in the privacy of my library, 'This mist is a blight, and it spreads.'" So that character is seeing the mist as a danger to the kingdom. And I'm posing the question to you guys. Did you see the mist as a danger? I mean, it like cut off trade with other kingdoms that might be out there around in the world. It isolated Blunder from other things. But was that really bad? Was that a terrible, bad thing? Was the magic that these infected kids got, was that bad? Was it a bad thing? Because it says here, the Shepherd King asked him, and that frightens you, Brutus? Unfettered magic? He's asking if the magic that these kids has was a danger. And I'm asking that too. They're calling it an infection, but was that really bad? Was the infection a bad thing? Or did the Rowans, the kingdom, the kingly line, did that kingly line just see the infection as bad? Did the kingly line just see the magic as bad? Therefore, if you got infected, the kingly line, they were going to have you killed. And that leads to my second question, which is this society worth saving? I mean, if Blunder really is in some kind of danger, do we care? Why are we saving them? They're a bunch of cretins. If they all think it's okay to kill off kids who get infected with magic, why are we saving them? What good are they? And there's your morality question for the day. Discuss in the comment field below. I mean, seriously, I was questioning, why are we saving these people? Discuss below. I mean, yeah, there were people who wanted to help the kids, a kid who got infected. There were people who sheltered them. But if you were found out, you were brought up on for treason. And let's see, where I've got it in here somewhere, you guys. Let me find pages 63 to 64. We talk about, or we show an inquest where people are being brought up for treason. Let me go to that page. Okay. This is where Ione Hawthorne and her uncle, which is Elspeth's father, and her own father, which is Elspeth's uncle, they're being brought before the king, and they're basically on trial. They're about to go through an inquest, all because everyone thinks they knew that Elspeth had this magic infection in her. So here we go. King Rowan's voice cut through the room. Elspeth Spindle is charged with high treason for carrying the infection. The throne groaned, the king's fingers white as he clung to the armrests. Furthermore, she is charged with the slaying of physician Orith Willow and the attempted murder of my son, High Prince Howth Rowan. Of these crimes, I have found her irrevocably guilty and sentence her to death. He let out a slow, venomous breath. It is my intention, through this inquest, to learn how much I should attribute these crimes to you, her kin. Tyrn let out a low whimper, earning looks of disgust from the destriers along the wall. The king continued, his malice thinly veiled. Tyrn Hawthorne, Eric Spindle, Ione Hawthorne, you have been summoned to stone, charged with treason for aiding Elspeth Spindle. You committed this treason knowingly and with full understanding of the law, which states that all infected children, for the safety of our kingdom, be reported to my physicians. The king shifted on the throne, his voice lowering. You shall submit to an inquest, the depths of your crimes measured by myself, my captain, your prince, and the destriers. When your wives and children are discovered, they shall do the same. So Raven basically got word to Hawthorne House and to Elspeth's other family, hey, get out, run away, get out of here. Take your charms into the mist and run through the forest to somewhere safe. Get away, because the king's people, the destriers, are going to come for you. Things have gotten bad. This happened at the end of book 1. So as much of the family that could get away, did get away. But here are Eric Spindle, Tyrn Hawthorne, and Ione Hawthorne in front of the king. And the king is like, well, you're the 3 I've got. If I find the rest of your families, including kids, I'll bring them up for an inquest as well. And y'all going to get like beheaded, executed, however, whatever, right? He's going to kill them all because they knew that Elspeth had this magic inside her. That does not sound to me like a happy kingdom full of lovely, wonderful people worth saving. But there are good people in the kingdom. So those people are worth saving, right? Just because the king is a tyrant and an awful, terrible, awful, horrible, awful person doesn't mean the whole kingdom needs to be put to the sword, right? Right. So Blunder is worth saving, right? Right? Tell me in the comments below how you feel about this. The thing is, the courtiers and the people in this kingdom who come to the castle, I'm not convinced that they're a whole lot better. They're not really helpful to Ione when she's going through her arc in this story, when she's trying to like survive, right? They're not really helpful to her. They're like these superficial catty women, right? They dress up how they're told to dress up for the theme of the different balls that are given each night, these dinners, these fancy, elegant balls that are given each night. You know, they dress how they're told to dress, and they walk around all highfalutin and whatever. Wow, they're not on Ione's side. They're not helping her. They're not seeing what's in front of their eyes, okay? And in fact, at the beginning of chapter 9, right before this inquest, we have these people. It reminded me of the T.S. Eliot poem, you know, the women in the rooms come and go, talking of Michelangelo, right? They're just vapid women wandering around. The great hall was full of light, drenched in the aroma of herbs and butter-glazed foods, perfumes and wine. Laughter bounced against its ancient walls, and music tangled in tapestries, pirouetting around pillars and knotting itself in skirts. But just a wall away, past great iron doors, another hall waited, one devoid of color, of smell, of sound, its only adornment a looming chair made from the hardy wood of rowan trees. Besides the dungeon, it was Elm's least favorite part of the castle, the throne room. Okay, so that's where the inquest is going to take place, in the throne room. So in this other room, though, these people are like laughing and having a gay old time. And I wrote in the margin, isn't the prince dying upstairs? And yeah, he is. He's dying upstairs. He's in a room, languishing. He's close to death. And these people are having a party. Yeah. And you might think, okay, well, they don't care about the prince because he's a brute, right? These people root for him to survive. So either they love him or they don't love him. Or are they just opportunists? What's the scoop with these people? Tell me in the comments below. Are they just opportunists? Are they just catty women? What's going on with these people? What's going on? Okay, do they deserve to be saved? Is what I'm asking. Is the society worth saving? Let's see. Okay, so we've talked about our questions. We've talked about our synopsis. Let's go on and talk about the characters. Let's go over some of the characters here. Because we have Elspeth and the Nightmare, as we did in the first book. We see them again. This time they are it feels like they are more intertwined this time. And this time the Nightmare is in charge. He's the one using Elspeth's body. Excuse me. He's the one doing all the actions and the acting. Elspeth is like in his mind. And in fact, at the beginning, Elspeth is lost in his mind. Over the years, for 500 years, the Shepherd King has been, I want to say, a prisoner in his own mind, in his own thoughts. He has made a safe, hidden place where he exists, where he resides. And as a child, when Elspeth tapped the Nightmare card, he rushed out of that place and joined with her and was in her mind. But he still has that safe space, and that safe place where he could go hide is where Elspeth goes and hides. Okay, after the tragic events at the end of book 1, she goes and she hides in this safe place where there's no time. There's no day or night. There's no passage of years. There's just existence. Okay, and she's there. She has no memory when she first gets there. She's just existing. And all she knows is she wants out. Let me out. Let me out. Wherever I am, let me out. And while she's there, beings come to visit her. And as she visits with these beings, she figures out that the beings who are coming to visit with her are the children of the Shepherd King. Because at the time, 500 years ago, he was married to a woman that he loved, and they had children. And these children had magic in them, and they could manipulate the providence cards that the Shepherd King was bartering with the Spirit of the Wood to make. So there's like an intricate backstory that we're being introduced to in the Twisted Crowns. We're getting to see who the Shepherd King was, and how, I don't want to say he was like debased, but how mired in the desire for more power and more magic and more cards he became. Like, he just became like obsessed. He became obsessed with wanting more cards and more cards and more cards. He wanted more. And each time that he wanted a new card from the Spirit of the Wood, she was like, well, okay, but what are you going to trade me for it? They would barter for the card. And so you would have to trade something for it. That passage at the beginning of chapter 10 that I read to you from One Dark Window just a minute ago, that showed how he had to barter with the Spirit of the Wood, give something up to get that card and the magic that was in it. That barter concept was going on throughout the Twisted Crowns as well. In fact, part 1 of the Twisted Crown was labeled To Bleed. Part 2 is labeled To Barter. And part 3 is labeled To Bend. And that part of To Barter, just, it was interspersed throughout the book. Characters were always bartering with another character to get a thing that they needed or to move forward. Yeah. All right. We were talking about Elspeth and the Nightmare. All right. Then there is, well, I guess I should mention that the Nightmare, I think I alluded to this earlier, that the Shepherd King and the Nightmare, they are seeing Elspeth as almost their child. They're protective of her. The Nightmare card allows you to slip into someone's mind and talk to them in their mind and see their thoughts in their mind. And there are only 2 Nightmare cards, and Raven has one. Okay, so he can tap his Nightmare card and go into someone's mind and talk to them. And Elspeth and the Nightmare, they don't want him doing that. And Elspeth has told him, don't come into my mind. Don't do it. And it's like, okay, I won't. But when he sees it, when Raven sees it as a necessity and he tries to access her mind, the Nightmare jumps up and is like, hey, she told you not to do that. Get out of here. And like basically pushes him back on his ass, right? It's like, get out of here. So the Nightmare is very protective of Elspeth and remains that way throughout the duology. He remains very protective of Elspeth. And I liked that. I thought that was an intriguing element, an intriguing layer to the Nightmare, because you might remember in the first video, I told you that I didn't trust the Shepherd King. I didn't trust him through most of this book either. He has his own agenda. He has his own wants and needs, and he's going to take care of those wants and needs. That's what he's going to do. But I did like the fact that he really did care what happened to Elspeth. He really did want to protect her. When he lost track of her in that safe space in their minds, he was concerned. He wanted to find her. He wanted to make sure she was okay. He didn't want to lose her. He didn't want her to become lost and lose her personhood. He did want to get her back and be with her again. He didn't want to lose her. Now, you could say that's because he was some kind of predator, but he didn't want to lose her. Which, okay. Let's see. Let's talk about Raven for a minute. In the first book, Raven was less interesting to me than he was in this book. I enjoyed Raven as a character more in this book. His arc was more pleasing to me in this book. I saw him grow more in this book. I saw him try more in this book. And I want to be careful because I don't want to give away what's going on there at the end. But yeah, I liked Raven more in this book. He seemed more driven in Two Twisted Crowns. Okay. He was more tortured in Two Twisted Crowns. Let's put it that way. Okay. don't think I'm giving away too much by saying he's tortured. Of course he's going to be tortured. All right. Then Renelm, the prince, Elm, he is much more front forward in this book, in Two Twisted Crowns. He is like a main character in this one. He and Ione, they develop a friendship, kind of standoffish friendship at first, and they develop almost they fall in love. Okay, they develop a relationship together through this book, which is almost difficult because Ione, we'll talk about her too. Ione has that maiden card. And you'll remember the maiden card, the user of the maiden card gets like an unnatural beauty. The maiden card makes you beautiful. It takes away your imperfections, right? Your physical imperfections. It takes away, your laugh lines and that kind of thing. You don't want a maiden card, okay? Everyone out there going, oh, that sounds great. No, you don't really want a maiden card. The maiden card, if you use it too much, it makes you apathetic. It takes away your ability to feel as well as your ability to be harmed or scarred, okay? It takes away from you. We learn there's more to the maiden card, though, in this book. We learn that the maiden card will heal you, will heal very deep wounds. For example, in book 1, we don't see this happen to Ione. We learn of it in book 2, but she shares that Prince Houth, this cretin, awful, horrible individual, tried to kill her. In fact, did kill her, sort of. On the night when everything happens, there at the climax of book 1, Prince Houth pushes Ione out of a tall window. Down she falls and crumples in a bloody, broken mess on the ground, on the stones, and basically dies. He kills her. This awful, terrible, horrible human being kills her. But because of the maiden card, she lies there in the dark, watching the moon in the sky, and she is healed. The maiden card heals her and brings her back to life, brings her back to herself, puts her bones back together, stitches her wounds, and she's healed. And she gets up from that and walks away, but no one knows this has happened to her. So in the passage that I read for you, pages 14 and 15, at page 15 at the end, it says here, her voice held a fine point like the tip of a needle. I doubt that. She doubts that Elm could have accidentally killed her. She doubts anyone can kill her. She fears that no one can kill her because of what had happened. Now, we don't know that when she gives us that line. No one knows that when she gives us that line on page 15, but we learn it later. And oh my gosh, that line suddenly has so much more impact. Rachel Gillig is awesome. I love that. Anyway. So Ione cannot be killed because of that maiden card that she carries. And what this cretin, awful, horrible Prince Houth did is, on the night that she was given the maiden card, he got her so drunk that he used his scythe card to manipulate her and force her to hide the maiden card from herself. So she must continue using it. She can't stop using it. The maiden card is hidden somewhere in Stone Castle. So she has to keep using it. She is continuously using the maiden card. She is continuously going deeper into its magic. She is continuously becoming more apathetic, more just immune to feelings. She's always beautiful, which is what Houth wants. She is always bendable to his will, which is what Houth wants. Because he's a cretin. He's awful. I mentioned that I'm glad he's lying in his own blood and vomit and disgust and in pain. Yeah. For most of the book. Yeah. Okay. So there's Ione and Elm. They're trying to form a relationship, which is difficult because the maiden card is taking away Ione's personhood. So they got to find this card and get her to tap it and get her personhood back, basically. So that's one of the plots running in this story. Then we have Emery. You might remember Emery is a cousin to the princes. He's Raven's brother, and he was infected. As a child, he got the fever. He was infected with magic, and he's like slowly degenerating because of the magic. He's losing himself, he's losing his health, but the king wants to drain his blood on solstice to lift the mist, to lift the magic. So he wants to, basically he wants to sacrifice Emery. Nice guy. Emery is, he's fading. He's not doing so good. So so his family gets him back to the U family castle to basically to keep track of him, to kind of keep him alive, basically to love on him, keep him alive as long as they can. Jesper. We're going to talk about Jesper for a little bit because I really liked the character of Jesper. She is Raven's sister. And in book 1, in One Dark Window, I keep pointing to it over here on my desk, and y'all can't see that off camera, can you? It's over here. It's right over here. So when I point over there, that's what I'm pointing at. Okay. In the book 1, in One Dark Window, Jesper was sort of a replacement for Ione for Elspeth, because Ione and Elspeth, you know, they're cousins and they've grown up together. And when Ione got that maiden card and just sort of shifted and changed, Elspeth lost her cousin and her dear friend, right? But Jesper was there. Jesper, Raven's sister, was there, and she was kind and she was a good friend and she was loving, and she kind of showed Elspeth the ropes, you know, in a few things. And it's just like she was a replacement for Ione, sort of. Okay, not a complete, but kind of a replacement. And the Twisted Crowns, I see Jesper as almost a replacement for Eris, who was the sister to the Shepherd King 500 years ago. The Shepherd King and Eris, Taxus, his name was Taxus. Taxus and Eris, they're like, I mean, they love each other. They're brother and sister, and they go through trials and tribulations together, right? But there is a point in their backstory where the Shepherd King, he and Eris are in the mist together, and they go to this place together. And Eris is, I want to say she was knocked unconscious. I don't remember exactly what it was now, but she was knocked unconscious. She was somehow unable to walk back, and she didn't have her charm with her when they were walking back through the mist. And so the Shepherd King, Taxus, was carrying his sister, and she was heavier than he thought, and it was hard for him to do, and he got tired, and he set her down at one point, and he couldn't carry on, and he left her there in the mist, and he left her. Okay, so she died. Okay, and I think maybe she was already dead, but anyway, she died. Okay, and he went back to his home without her, and at his home, her husband was like, "You left her. What?" And of course, the husband is mad, and that husband was Brutus Rowan, who eventually kills the Shepherd King. There we have our initial conflict, right? So Jesper in this book, in the Two Twisted Crowns, when she is incapacitated, Elspeth, with the nightmare and the Shepherd King in her mind and controlling her body, lifts Jesper and is carrying her and won't let her go, won't set her down, won't let anyone else carry her. He's going to carry her through Elspeth. He's going to carry her, and he's going to complete that mission this time. Now, Rachel didn't say he's going to complete that mission this time. She didn't spell that out. She didn't have to. We get it. The reader, we get it. And we see that parallel, and I loved it. I thought that was an awesome parallel. It was almost like we were going to give the Shepherd King a little bit of redemption in that. I don't know if we should. Maybe we should, but I saw that as here's a little bit of redemption for the Shepherd King through Jesper as his heiress in this time. Yeah. I thought it was a brilliant parallel. Okay, those are all the characters we need to talk about. I mean, the king is there. He's the king, and he's drunk a lot. In fact, there was a point, I wonder if I can find it. I know I put a little tab next to it, but there was a point in here where the king was drunk as usual because he's like worried about his son, the cretin who nobody cares. Well, I care about. Oh, here we go. On page 119. Let's see. Elm is trying to tell his father, the king, that Hauff might recover. And no, he will not. The king placed the crown back onto his head. He looked weathered, the wind and rain washing all pretense from him. He was just a drunk old man grieving. And out to the side, I wrote, fine. Fine. Let him be a drunk old man grieving. He's awful. He's terrible. And his son is a cretin and a brute. Did I mention that I was happy that Hauff was tortured and dying on his deathbed? Yeah. I was glad that he was in pain through most of the book. Okay. What else? Are there any other characters we needed to talk about? Guys, did we cover everything? You guys, we covered everything. I'm trying so hard not to give away like the stuff that happens at the end. There was this item I was going to mention about this use of coitus interruptus with Chekhov's law, but I don't know if I should tell it to you because I don't want to give away a spoiler. So here we go. I'm gonna tell you about it, and I'll use the hashtag as we do. Here's the scoop. I will talk to you about this with the hashtag sign up so that if you don't want this spoiler, you can mute while the hashtag sign is up. If you're not worried about this little spoiler, then you can listen all the way through. When I put the hashtag sign back down, the spoilery part will be done and you can come back, turn your volume back up. How's that? Is that okay? We'll do it that way because there was a scene in the second act that gives us, yeah. Okay, ready? Here we go. The hashtag sign is up. You need to mute if you don't want this spoiler to happen. Okay, so Rachel Gillig used Chekhov's law nicely with some coitus interruptus in this book. On pages 152 and 153, Elm and Ione they're on a cold stone floor, which I was a little concerned about Elm's intelligence level there. But anyway, they're on this cold stone floor. They're kind of rolling around. They're about to get it on. They're about to do the deed. And we have a noise in the room pulled Ione's focus, her eyes darting to the cellar door, which was now open. Philip Willow, with his hounds and books, stood wide-eyed, arrested at the threshold. Elm dragged his hands off Ione and shot the physician a murderous glare. Are we no longer knocking, Philip? I did knock. Philip's gaze flew to Ione. Apologies, Miss Hawthorne. He hurried out of the room, leaving his dogs behind. One of them settled into his bed of hay in the corner. The other came over, tail wagging, and licked Elm across the face. He reached for Ione, but she was already off the floor and on her feet, wine in her hair. He's not going to say anything, Elm said, adjusting himself in his pants. She hurried toward the door. Wait, Hawthorne, Elm called after her. Ione, wait. She didn't. So we have Philip interrupting them by throwing the door open in Act 2. And then in Act 3, we use it again. And we use it when we really need it. And that, let me see if I can get to that page for you. Page 329. Hold on, let me get there. All right, page 329. And this is where it would have spoiled something for you. So I hope you've got this muted if you don't want to be spoiled. Because Hauff has been restored. They've restored. I won't tell you how. They've restored him, and he has just put a knife in Ione's heart. She's on the floor. She's lost a lot of blood. Okay, it is bad. And Hauff has used his scythe card, so Elm can hardly move. The door banged open. Philip Willow stood at the threshold with his books and his dogs, eyes wide as he took in the room. Hauff and Linden standing over Elm and Ione. Blood on the floor. His gaze found Elm's face, tracing the budding bruises, the tears in his eyes. Forgive me, Prince, he said. I should have knocked louder. Elm could have kissed the ground. He nodded at Ione in his arms. Take her, he said, his voice breaking. Help her. Nice. Yeah. So that what was sort of comic relief in Act 2 was great. I mean, like Chekhov told, like the Chekhov's law tells us, if you if you put a gun in Act 1 or Act 2, you've got to use it by Act 2 or Act 3. And boy, that door open, Philip busting through the door. Rachel used it brilliantly, beautifully. I loved it. It was comic relief in Act 2, and it was so well done in Act 3. I was like cheering when he burst through the door in Act 3. Brilliant. Brilliant. Okay. The hashtag sign is down. You can come on back now. Turn the volume back up if you were hiding from the spoiler. Okay. So that's all. My questions still stand. Did you believe that Blunder was actually in danger? Was the kingdom of Blunder in any real danger, the whole kingdom? And if so, was that society worth saving? Personally, I think it was worth saving. I mean, there were plenty of people in the society who I think, yeah, let's save them. Let's get rid of that mist. Let's get rid of the extra magic. Let's save them. But, tell me what you think. You guys, thumbs up for an awesome duology from Rachel Gillig. I can totally and fully recommend One Dark Window and Two Twisted Crowns from Rachel Gillig. I loved it. I loved the duology. I thought it was great. I thought it was wonderful. There were like teeny tiny minor typos once in a while. So, other than that, I mean, it was well plotted. It was well written. It had good stuff, good characters. I really hated Houth. I loved the fact that he got shredded. There were things that just I loved. Thumbs up for a great fantasy duology that I love. You guys, subscribe to the channel. Please encourage your friends to subscribe to the channel too, because we talk about all kinds of books here. And we do booktube tags and other fun book stuff. It's usually a pretty entertaining time around here.